Rain in District 12 didn't fall. It attacked. Needle-sharp sheets hammered rusted rooftops, flooded alleys in minutes, and turned every neon reflection into a trembling wound of color across broken concrete. In weather like this, even drones flew higher to avoid the spray. Even gangs stayed inside. But Arav Hale stood beneath a dead street lamp anyway, soaked to the bone, hugging a paper bag of stale bread like it was worth protecting. At 22, he had the posture of someone already apologizing for existing. Shoulders rounded, eyes down, voice small when he remembered to use it. People in the lower sectors called him nerd because he fixed old terminals, quoted history no one cared about, and flinched when arguments got loud. Tonight, even the food kiosks had shut down early. His shift at the recycler ended late. His room key had glitched again. His landlord had accidentally changed the lock code and gone offline. So he stood in the rain, shivering, trying not to cry in public. That was when the black transport stopped. No headlights, no branding, silent anti-grav hum. Its door slid open with a soft hydraulic sigh, and a woman stepped out that looked like the storm had decided to become human for one night. She was tall, red-skinned, silver-haired, and wrapped in a dark coat that moved like ink in water. Pale luminescent lines curled at her temples and wrists, pulsing faintly with the rhythm of her breath. Her eyes were amber gold, bright even in rain haze, not soft bright, dangerous bright. Arav took one step back. He recognized her in the same instant he wished he didn't. Nyra Loom. In the city's rumor net, that name meant many things depending on who was scared that week. Memory smuggler, truth broker, black archive ghost. Some said she could pull secrets out of your mind with 2 fingers. Some said she healed trauma for people too rich to admit they had any. Some swore she'd once shut down a war by revealing one governor's buried confession live on a public channel. None of those rumors agreed on one detail, what she was doing in District 12 at midnight. Nyra looked him up and down once, not like a predator, like a diagnostic scan. "Why are you outside?" she asked. Her voice was low and calm, barely louder than rain, but it cut through the weather like a clean line through static. Arev swallowed. Lock issue. Your body temperature is dropping, he blinked. What? You're hypothermic. She glanced toward the alley's wind tunnel. Come. She turned back to the transport as if the decision were already made. Arav froze. No one invited people from 12 anywhere except trouble. I'm fine, he lied, teeth chattering hard enough to make the words rattle. Nyra stopped, came back, stood close enough for him to see droplets beating on her lashes. Then she did something that shattered every rumor he'd heard. She reached out, took his freezing hands in both of hers, and pulled him close, chest to chest, cloak around both of them, sheltering him from rain and wind in one smooth motion. Her skin was warm, not metaphor warm, actual impossible warmth in a storm that bit to the bone. Arev went rigid in shock. Breathe, she said near his ear. Slowly, in, out, he obeyed before his pride could object. Good, she murmured. Now get in the car. The transport smelled faintly of cedar and ozone. Interior lights were dim amber, soothing by design, no visible control panel, no driver. The door sealed with a whisper and the storm disappeared like someone had muted the world. Arav sat on the edge of a bench, dripping and miserable, trying not to touch anything expensive with his cheap jacket. Nyra offered him a thermal blanket and a metal flask. Sip. He did. Sweet ginger and something floral spread heat through his chest so fast it almost hurt. Thank you, he said, voice hoarse. She sat opposite him, coat unfastened now, silver hair damp at the ends. Up close, the faint glowing lines at her temples looked less like decoration and more like circuitry grown under skin. You know my name, she said. It wasn't a question. Arav nodded. Everyone does. Everyone believes different lies about it. He stared into the flask. I didn't expect this. Kindness, he flushed. I mean, you're famous. Infamous mostly. The transport glided forward. Outside, rain-smeared towers blurred by. Nyra watched him the way a physician watches a patient deciding whether to tell the truth. What were you really doing out there, she asked. Waiting for morning, landlord only responds after sunrise. Why didn't you call anyone? He laughed once, a brittle sound. Anyone? Silence settled. Then Nyra nodded once, not pity, recognition. She took him to a place called Loom House. No public address. No signage, just an old observatory dome welded into the side of a high-rise skeleton at the edge of the mid-city floodwall. Inside, it was all curved glass, warm lights, and quiet. Plants grew in suspended trays. Soft instrumental music hummed from unseen speakers. Shelves held data crystals, hand-bound notebooks, and artifacts from a dozen worlds. It didn't feel rich. It felt cared for. A woman in her 60s with shaved silver hair looked up from a console as they entered. "Another stray?" she asked, not unkindly. Nyra handed her the wet jacket with a glance that meant yes. "This is Mara," Nyra said. "She runs this place when I pretend I do." Mara snorted. "I run this place because you forget meals and time." To Arev, she said, "Showers there, dry clothes in the second drawer. If those don't fit, we'll pretend they do." By the time Arev emerged, warm and embarrassed in borrowed charcoal sweats, a bowl of lentil stew waited at the table. He ate too fast. Mara refilled it without comment. Nyra sat across from him, elbows on knees, studying his face. "Tell me about your headaches," she said. Arev nearly dropped his spoon. "What? You wince when bright light shifts. You touch your left temple before speaking about home. Your hands shake differently when you're cold versus when you remember. So, headaches." He looked to Mara, who shrugged as if to say that's just Nyra. "They started last year," he admitted slowly. After the archive fire at Polytechnic, Nyra's expression changed by a millimeter. "You were there. I worked nights in records digitization, basement level, electrical surge, officially accidental." "Officially," Nyra repeated like the word tasted bad. Arav stared at the stew. "I don't remember everything, just heat, alarm voice, then missing hours." Since then, sometimes memories skip, like scratched film. Nyra leaned back, gazed distant for a beat. "And no clinic," he smiled without humor. "You need insurance for memory diagnostics. Insurance needs employment tier needs stable cognition report needs diagnostic, nice circle." Mara muttered, "City's favorite geometry." Nyra stood, "Eat, then sleep, we talk tomorrow." Arav blinked. "About what?" "About why someone burned an academic archive and why your mind has a hole shaped like a crime scene." He dreamed in fragments that night. A hallway painted safety blue, an access badge flashing green, a woman yelling, "Not that wing," then white light, then silence heavy as snow. He woke before dawn in a guest room with rain tapping gently on glass. For the first time in months, his skull didn't feel clamped in iron. He found Nyra on the rooftop garden, barefoot, eyes closed, palms hovering above a lattice of thin glowing threads suspended between copper posts. The threads vibrated with tiny notes like a harp played by wind. She opened one eye as he approached. "Morning," he hesitated. "What is that?" "Memory loom," she said. "Prototype, temperamental, dramatic. You weave memories. I map patterns, stabilize recall pathways. Sometimes I help people recover what trauma scrambled. Sometimes I help them set down what they can't carry. Does it hurt? Depends what we touch." Arev leaned on the rail, watching dawn spill pink over flood barriers and antenna forests. "Why help me?" he asked quietly. Nyra considered him for a long moment. "Because last month 3 students from your old department disappeared." His blood went cold despite the morning sun. "Because 2 days ago a city councilman requested encrypted access to salvaged archive residues from that fire." She turned to face him fully. "And because when I said your body temperature was dropping, you apologized to me." Arev frowned. "I did. You said, 'Sorry for being trouble.'" He looked away. Nyra's voice softened. "People who apologize for suffering were usually taught they had to earn care. I dislike whoever taught you that." Something in his throat tightened unexpectedly. By noon, they were in the Loomhouse lower lab, circular room, low lighting, one reclining chair in the center surrounded by ring-shaped projectors and braided cables. On one wall, old city maps layered over infrastructure schematics. On another, names and dates pinned with red thread. Mara ran system checks. Nyra prepped interface bands, thin flexible loops that settled against Arav's temples and wrists. "This is voluntary," Nyra said. "We can stop anytime. You stay in control." "What if what I remember is bad?" Nyra met his gaze steadily. "Then we remember it together." He nodded. The lights dimmed. At first there was only warmth and the distant sound of rain from memory rather than weather. Then images rose, blurry and disjointed, corridor lights, emergency strobes, metallic taste in his mouth. Nyra's voice anchored him. "Name 5 things you can feel." "Chair, air on my hands, band on my temple, my heartbeat, fabric at my neck." "Good, follow the blue door." "What blue?" The door appeared as he said it, memory obeying suggestion. Arav flinched. "Walk to it," Nyra said gently. He did. It opened onto basement stacks at Polytechnic, shelves of archival drives, rows labeled pre-unification land CLAIMS, bioethics tribunal transcripts, municipal contracts, restricted. In the memory, young Arav turned a corner and saw 2 men in civic security jackets standing near a server core. One held a jammer. The other held a canister with hazard stripes. Not an accident, sabotage. Arav's breathing spiked. Stay with me, Nyra said. You're here. Memory. Arav stepped backward, hit a cart noise. Both men turned. One shouted witness, then white flash. Arav ripped the interface band off with a strangled sound. The room snapped back into focus. He was shaking hard. Mara moved first, steady hands on his shoulders. Nyra knelt in front of him, not touching until he nodded. Then her palm rested lightly over his wrist, warm and grounding. You did well, she said. He laughed shakily, half hysterical. Well, I just remembered attempted murder. You survived attempted murder and recovered admissible memory sequence without dissociating. Her tone stayed practical, almost dry. That qualifies as well. Despite everything, he huffed a broken laugh, then his face crumpled. They said it was electrical fault, people died. Nyra's jaw tightened. We're going to make that lie expensive. They spent 3 days assembling proof, not vigilante chaos evidence architecture. Nyra extracted metadata ghosts from archival backups the city thought were scrubbed. Mara cross-referenced procurement logs for hazard canisters. Arev identified one saboteur by a ring he remembered, municipal crest with a chipped black enamel edge. The name surfaced by evening, Director Haven Rusk, Infrastructure Risk Office. Public face, anti-corruption. Private record, contract laundering, land seizure proxies, and now evidence tampering in mass casualty cover-up. Why burn a university archive? Arav asked, exhausted and furious. Nyra projected a map over the table. Old floodplain deeds lit up in amber. Because those drives contained pre-corporate ownership records, if those survived, half the eviction orders in lower districts become illegal. Arav stared. He burned a building to erase land theft. Nyra's eyes hardened to molten gold. He burned people to erase paperwork. A heavy silence followed. Then Nyra said, we have 2 options, quiet legal filing and wait months while he buries us, or public release with checksum chain, witness statement, and mirrored drops to 3 independent networks. Arav swallowed. Public means he comes after us. Nyra gave a thin smile. He already did, that's why you had memory gaps. Mara set 3 cups of tea on the table with military precision. Drink revolution after hydration. The broadcast went live at 21:00. No flashy intro, no dramatic music. Just Nyra at a plain desk, the city skyline behind her, Ariadne Netstream mirrored across civic channels before sensors could throttle it. My name is Nyra Loom, she began, calm as ever. Tonight I am releasing verified evidence regarding the Polytechnic Archive fire and associated land fraud in Districts 9 through 13. Arav sat off camera with Mara, hands clenched so tight his nails cut his palms. Nyra presented timeline, procurement logs, metadata signatures, and Arav's recovered memory segment edited for clarity, not spectacle. She named victims first, then names of officials, then the independent auditors who had already received full packets. Within 6 minutes, Polytechnic truth trended across local nets. Within 11, Director Rusk's office issued denial. Within 13, one of his own deputies resigned on a live call and confirmed chain of command authorization. Within 20, protest drones filled floodwall skies with projected names of the dead. At 27 minutes, the stream cut out, power loss. Loomhouse went dark. Mara cursed once creatively. Nyra stood in total blackness, still as a blade. Backup cells in 5, she said. Before the emergency lights kicked in, the first impact hit the outer door, then another. Arav's stomach. Are those private enforcement? Mara said grimly, pulling a compact shock baton from under the table. Rusk's cleanup crew. Arav went pale. We should run. Nyra turned to him. In red emergency glow, she looked almost otherworldly. No, she said, we go public twice. She tapped her wristband. A hidden channel opened. All mirrors release now, she ordered. Full packet, include my location and live breach. Mara grinned like she'd been waiting years. That'll make excellent optics. The outer lock screamed as it failed. Nyra looked at Arav. Can you stand behind me? He nodded too fast. I don't want to hide, he said, voice shaking. But shaking is not the opposite of brave, she said. Come, the door blew inward. Masked officers poured through smoke and sparks. Nyra stepped forward not with weapons, but with voice. Live stream active, she announced, loud enough for their helmet mics. You are being recorded executing unlawful suppression on witness-protected civilians. Half the officers hesitated. The leader raised a pulse rifle anyway. Arav moved without thinking, stepping beside Nyra instead of behind her. His voice cracked but carried. I'm Arav Hale. I witnessed the fire. I remember your boss. The leader flinched. Outside, sirens rose, real ones this time, not private. Public pressure works fast when millions are watching. Municipal integrity units stormed the stairwell seconds later, weapons trained on both sides. Chaos froze into standoff, then into arrests. When it was over, Arav sank to the floor, shaking so hard he couldn't speak. Nyra crouched in front of him and did what she had done in the rain, wrapped her cloak around both of them, pulled him close, and said the two words he hadn't known he needed. "You stayed." He let out a sound halfway between laugh and sob. "So did you." Trials took months. Director Rusk fell first, then the contractors, then the council allies who had signed eviction accelerations based on falsified claims. District restitution hearings began under independent oversight. Slow, messy justice, but moving. The city changed in increments like dawn through storm cloud. Arav testified twice, trembling both times, stronger the second. His statement became required viewing in civic ethics classes, mostly because he ended it with, "If your policy requires poor people to forget, your policy is violence." He hated that it went viral. Nyra loved that it was accurate. Loomhouse became busier than ever. Students, labor organizers, trauma survivors, whistleblowers, and ordinary people who wanted help remembering themselves after years of being told they were disposable. Arav started volunteering there on weekends. Then weekdays too. Mara pretended not to notice he had essentially moved in. He still startled at loud alarms, still had rough nights. Healing wasn't cinematic, but the headaches lessened. Memory gaps shrank. He slept mostly. One evening, months after the storm, he found Nyra on the rooftop again, tuning the memory threads while sunset turned the floodwall copper. "You ever rest?" he asked. "Occasionally, by accident." He leaned on the rail beside her. "They're calling you the Red Archivist now," he said. Nyra made a face. "I preferred infamous, less theatrical," he smiled. "You know, people in 12 started a mural. I heard. It's you in the rain." Nyra's fingers paused above the glowing threads. "I did very little in that rain." Arav gave her a look. "You pulled me out of a freeze response and into a life." She went quiet. After a moment, she said, almost to herself, "My people have an old saying. To hold someone in their winter is a sacred promise." He turned to her. "You made that promise." She met his gaze, amber eyes bright in the dusk. "I did." Arav swallowed past sudden emotion. "Then thank you." Nyra tilted her head. "For what part?" He looked out over the city, scarred, stubborn, alive. "For treating me like I mattered before I could prove I did." For once, Nyra Loom had no clever response. She just smiled, small and real. Rain came again a week later, hard enough to blur the skyline. Arav stood under the old dead street lamp in District 12, not because he was locked out this time, but because the mural had just been finished on the wall opposite. Nyra in her dark coat, silver hair in storm wind, one arm wrapped around a shivering figure with a paper bag in his hand. No hero pose, no weapon, just shelter. Kids splashed through puddles below it, arguing about whether memory threads were science or magic. A woman from the next block handed out tea from a thermos to commuters she didn't know. Two men who once worked eviction crews now painted legal aid contact codes on storm barriers. Small things, load-bearing things. A black transport glided to the curb beside him. Door opened. Nyra leaned out. "You'll catch cold for nostalgia at this rate." He laughed and climbed in. As the door sealed and the rain dimmed, he glanced back at the mural one last time. "Do you think people will remember?" he asked. Nyra followed his gaze. "Not automatically," she said. "Memory is maintenance." The transport pulled away, warm and quiet. Arav settled into the seat, no longer hugging himself against the cold. Outside, District 12 shimmered under stormlight, still imperfect, still vulnerable, still fighting. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, he didn't feel like trouble. He felt like someone who had been seen. And sometimes, in a city built on forgetting, that was the most revolutionary thing of all.